that some kind of way, by some artificial standard, we just were not good enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not prepared enough, felt inadequate. But the other question is, and have you ever felt like we were just inferior, where we just lacked what was needed? We're in a room of other folk or in a place with other people, and it seems like everybody has it all together but us. Ever felt like we've just been insufficient? Where we just did not quite measure up. And if we are really honest, at some point in life, every person has felt, first of all, inadequate, like we were not good enough. We felt like we were inferior, lacking what was needed. We have felt insufficient, like we just did not measure up, and all of that leads to feeling broken. Now I don't know if y'all see this good-looking fellow up here, but what happened? So let me give you the context of what happens now about feeling inadequate and insufficient and inferior. Every boy in here, every man in here knows there was a time whenever you played either football or basketball or baseball where the people who were the stars, the more skilled or the older kids would pick sides. So you got two people here, A and B, and you got all these people in the middle. And these people were, again, were either the oldest ones or the ones that were the ones that had the most skill. And they would go back and pick, I want to take so-and-so, I want to take so-and-so, I want to take so-and-so, I want to take so-and-so. And invariably, growing up, I was always left out. Either the last one picked, or if it was odd, I just had to watch the game. So the question really boiled down to at this point, like, what happens then when we're in a situation then? And so all this is going on, and I particularly wanted to end up playing basketball. And at that time, despite my height now, I was just short. Just short. And everybody was being picked. So they wanted to play somebody. They got this person, they got this person, they got this person. And you only got, if they're going to play 5-on-5, I was always either the 11th person or I was the person that somebody said, like, well, I guess I just get him. Feeling inadequate and inferior. And so now, whether or not it was sports or not, at some point in life, we've all been in a situation where we were the one left over, or we were the ones that nobody wanted to have. And it felt like we didn't quite measure up in any area of life as well. And whenever we continue to feel inadequate, inferior, or insufficient, it's going to lead to eventually us feeling broken. This today, what we're talking about, all month long, we've been talking about this idea about every month we've looked at a different beat as it relates to our understanding of discipline. And it leads, if we are not careful again, when we feel inadequate so long, and feel inferior so long, and feel insufficient so long, it's only a matter of time before we start feeling broken. So the question really is now, we took a look on 2 weeks ago, took a look at Mephibosheth. And we talked about at this point that David was best friends with Jonathan. He said, there anybody in the house of Saul I can bless? And we talked about this idea then of blockage. So let's go back and remember what we said a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Can we stop or block God's blessings? Well, first of all, let me ask a question. How many of us have heard we could stop or block God's blessings in life? How many of us have heard that? And the question we really dealt with during that time, the question here is, can we stop or block it? And the answer is no. We can't stop God's blessing. We can't block God's blessing, but we can be out of position to receive what God has for us. Whenever we are praying about something, it is not produced when we pray. It was already there. We just now have to be in position to receive what's there. Can you give God a hand clap of praise if you believe that? And then we have to be in position to receive it. When I was praying to get married, God did not create my wife when I prayed. She was already out there. I just had to go find, because the word says, he who finds a wife. I had to go looking for her. I couldn't go to Match.com. The idea was, but I had to find. She was already there. So I couldn't, but now I could be out of position to receive what God had. And here's the point. God has already given us our breakthrough. Come on now. God has already given us our blessings. God has already removed our burdens. Sometimes we are just out of position to receive what God has already provided. So we cannot stop God's blessings. We can't block God's blessings, but we can be out of position to receive what God has for us. An example you always use, if the Federal Express delivers on Pine Croft, which is right out there on this side, and I'm at the back of the church, It is not like they did not deliver it. I just am out of position to receive it. So that was our spiritual point from 2 weeks ago. Last week we talked about this idea of this from looking at, are we bound as believers by our word? And if you remember from last week, we were sharing about how Abraham was about to die. And he had his eldest servant who had been with him forever, make a commitment to him to find a wife for his son Isaac. So the question is, are we bound by our word? Are we bound by our word? So bound simply means to fulfill promises. And the question is, at this point, we are bound as believers by our words. But let's go back and take a look at what we're focusing today. We're talking about this spiritual principle now of being broken. So here's the question I want to ask you to wrestle with me today. Can believers ever feel broken? I want you to think about that. Can believers, I'm talking about folk who love the Lord now, can we ever feel broken? We talked about it before. Sometimes we feel inadequate. Sometimes we feel inferior. Sometimes we feel like we don't measure up. That if we keep staying in that place long enough, eventually, we talk about it leads to being broken. So the question is, can believers, folk who know that God sent his only son to die for us on the cross and shed his blood for us, can believers ever feel broken? And here's the second question with that. Are believers broken by God? First question. These are two questions we're going to deal with today. Can believers ever feel broken? And the second one is, are believers broken by God? There's so much incorrect teaching about who God is in our lives. I never will forget about this idea about being broken by God. I never will forget when my mother's mom, my maternal grandmother, T.T., when T.T.'s husband, uncle, my granddad, I love that man. I thought he was just the epitome of what a man should be. And when he ended up contracting cancer, and I remember he was the chair of the deacon board at Mount Zion Baptist Church, Kansas, Mississippi, had a mourner's bench on the front. Every now and then, line songs are all they going on. And at that point, the vice chair of the deacon board said that God gave my granddaddy cancer to prove he could heal. Now, I didn't even at that point hadn't even grown spiritually, but at that point, that didn't even make sense to me. You're telling me that a God who is loving, and a God who is good, and a God who is awesome, that God is going to put cancer on my granddaddy, the chairman of the deacon board who's been serving you all this time to prove he can heal? God is not a child abuser. Come on, somebody. God is not a child abuser. No parent in here is going to give, if they can be a doctor, they're not going to give your child some poison to prove you could heal them. Didn't make any sense at that point. So many times we have put stuff on God. No, it was not God who put cancer on my granddaddy. It's after smoking those Camel cigarettes for 40 years without a filter on them that'll knock you out. And I picked up one time and I was out for 3 days. It was not the God that put it on him. It was those unfiltered Camel cigarettes that he contracted that. So too many times we keep believing that God is just ready to break us. Every time we mess up, God's got a better book with us. You mess up again, then we have an incorrect assumption and a view about who God is. So all this message, very quickly, we're going to talk about, can we feel broken as believers? And are we broken by God? So today what I want to do is have us turn over to Genesis 29. We're going to look at verses 1. Now the whole chapter is 1 through 35. We're going to read from the King James Version and stand in just a moment. But let me give you the backdrop about what happens before we get to Genesis 29 that would help us to address this idea of being broken. Because here's what happens. As believers, first of all, the world is broken. But if folk in the world are broken, they're expecting somebody to be healed and somebody not to be broken. And then if folk in the church are broken, as folk in the world, where's our testimony about how wonderful God is? So at some point, we have to accept the fact that God is a God of healing and restoration. So what happened here in this text, we're going to look at this one character in just a moment. So what we have here in Genesis 29, we spent some time on Genesis 24 before. So what we have is that Abraham had a wife, Sarah. they had a son named Isaac. We know that Abraham, when Abraham was old, that occurred. But we also remember that because Abraham and Sarah were old, Sarah says, I'm old, I can't have a baby, and gave her handmaid Hagar to her husband. Then when Abraham said, well, because I'm a good husband, I'm going to go and accept the handmaid, and they end up having a baby named Ishmael. Ishmael always occurs when we take matters into our own hands. Has anybody ever tried to solve your own problem and never worked out? That's Ishmael. We have created some Ishmaels in life. Did not wait on God, did not trust God, did not believe God, did not rely on God. We created Ishmaels in our life. Ishmael was never supposed to be there. But Ishmael came by getting ahead of God and is not waiting on God. Ishmael comes. And in turn, after Hagar had Ishmael, at that point, Sarah was upset. They were away. So eventually, when Abraham was 100 and Sarah was 90, without any Viagra, they ended up having a firstborn son named Isaac. So Abraham and Sarah have Isaac. Isaac then marries Rebekah. And they have a son, they have twins named Esau and Jacob. Are you with me now? So Abraham and Sarah have a son named Isaac. Who does Isaac marry? Rebekah. Okay, two people paying attention. Rebekah. And then from there they have twins named Esau and Jacob. Now Esau was the oldest, even though they were twins, Esau was the oldest one. So we should be saying the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. But at that point, we found out, if we went back and read the scripture more, that Esau was tricked out of his birthright by Jacob. One day, Esau was out in the field. Jacob was cooking. Esau came back in and said, brother, give me something to eat. And Jacob said, I'll tell you what, if you sell me your birthright, you got some stew. How many blessings have we given away that God had for us for something that was insignificant? He gave away his birthright for some stew. So then when he gave his birthright away, it became the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now here's what happened. So Jacob ended up tricking his brother. Now, by the time we get to Genesis 29, Esau finds out he's been tricked and wants to take his brother out. Rebekah said, look here, I'll tell you what, why don't you go to another land and you go over there with my brother and you go away until Esau calms down. So Jacob took what Esau was supposed to have. Esau was the firstborn, although they were twins. We now say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but we should be saying the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. Esau sold his birthright away for some stew. And his mama said, go, my brother Laban is over here in Haran. I want you to go over there because I believe your brother's about to kill you. You get me? Jacob tricked his brother. And we'll see in our text today how the trickster got tricked. You can't do wrong and expect wrong not to come back. You can't mistreat people and expect folks to treat you right. We are going to reap what we sow. We're going to reap more than we sow. And we're going to reap later than we sow. Come on now. I said we're going to always reap what you sow. If you sow discord is coming back. But if you sow love is coming back. We're going to reap what we sow. We're going to reap more than we sow. And we're going to reap later. You don't just sow today and automatically comes back. We're going to always reap what we sow, more than we sow, and later than we sow. So in our text, Jacob has now gone to the land of Laban. Now let me be very clear about this. This was one of the first chapters that had to do a script for Jerry Springer, because if you follow closely enough, you have Jacob's mama Rebekah has a brother named Laban. Laban has some daughters that Jacob ends up marrying. So he marries his first cousin. Just Jack. But the idea was don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to the spiritual point behind here is what goes on when we are serving God. So now turn with me down to Genesis chapter 29. That's the backdrop of what we're about to read now. Genesis 29. And although we have the verses 1 through 35, I want us only to focus on verses 16 through 20 today. So I want you to pass me, I'm ready to receive the word. I'm excited about receiving the word. I am prepared to receive the word. Won't you stand even now in the presence of the Lord as we read Genesis 29, and although